Welcome back. You're listening to the Country Viewpoint here on your colour of Country Life Flow FM. Well, joining me here in the studios in Roseworthy is a very special guest. It is Robyn Verall. She's the Keith-based beef and lamb producer, helping tackling food insecurity in the ag space. She's also a very high-profile person in the agriculture industry in South Australia and was named as South Australia's AgriFutures Rural Women's Award winner back in 2022. Robyn, so great to have you here with us in the Flow FM Media Centre. How are you?
Good, thank you, Alice, and thank you so much for having me here. It's a great facility, and it's the first time I've actually been here after listening to you when I hit the freeway up and back from Adelaide to Keith.
Well, there you go. It's great to finally connect. I guess we should firstly start on the note of what you're currently getting up to, because there's so many different angles that we could take. So firstly, right now, what's taking up most of your time?
At the moment, what's taking up most of my time is not only the price increases that we're getting as farmers through processors and butchers, but I'm about to launch a podcast and website called Unveiled Trusts, which is about family farming and betrayals that go on, our hidden shame in agriculture around the world, in farming families trying to sort out succession, and then after succession being embroiled in 1936 Trust Act lawsuits.
Yeah, succession planning for farms, it's not an issue that you hear an awful lot about. There's a few people who specialise in that area specifically, but we don't talk enough about it, do we?
No, we don't, and it leaves a lot of farming families, those that are working on the farms, lost and looking for somewhere to go. And when I married my farmer, we met up because I organised our 20-year high school reunion, and when I landed on the farm, I thought, what do you mean? We only get paid once a year. And you go through all these intricacies of a family business that you knew nothing about, but succession was done. So 20 years down the track, there comes another grab for farming land or money, and it becomes a real battle. Like, we are actually in court on this issue at the moment.
That's another great story in itself, the fact that you found love at a high school reunion. I want to get to that a little later on, but firstly, just on succession planning, do you need, maybe there's a fear that, farmers out there feel burdened by thinking they have to go out and seek legal counsel. Is that the case, or are there just specialised people out there who perhaps aren't going to charge you legal fees as such to give you some really good advice where you can just go and find out a little bit more about why you should take it seriously?
I think the Rural Business Support Network is great in South Australia. They certainly give advice. But I think if you're in any sort of trust, no matter what trust unit that it is, getting advice from the get-go, which is something I didn't do because I didn't know anything about trusts. I'm still not in the trust, that you really should be prepared for absolutely anything. And succession seems to bring out the best and the worst in everybody. So, there's fingers of blame, there's you're getting more than me, there's, the parent factor, the brother, the sibling factor, and you really should have maybe even a mediator. So from the get-go, you're talking in conflict, because these conversations aren't easy to have. Everyone's got to be honest, and a lot of people find being honest, I'm going to hurt that person, but then they do things and say things that are hurtful anyway. So perhaps having a mediator there, which is what I would have liked with our family issue, just to see if we could resolve something before it ends up in court.
All right. Well, it's certainly something that we should explore further, but I just want to go to something else you spoke about earlier on, which was the battleground, if you like, for farmers right now when it comes to, trying to do business in any way that they can. Just wonder, did you see the four corners on Woolworths and Coles and everything that was brought out in that 1 hour piece of exposing the big two? And I guess that's the problem there in itself, isn't it? The fact that here in Australia there's the duopoly, whereas in Britain we've got, the four chains. In America there's even more than that. So obviously farmers here, really hard to do business right now when you're being dictated to by just two players in the game.
I think, and I agree, that was really uncomfortable. And not just from a farming point of view, but even as a consumer, we should all be concerned. We're like, where do we go if we say we've got this issue? But farmers historically have been price takers. And that's what I worked out very early on in my marriage, when I sort of thought, how am I going to have an income when I've had an income all my life? How am I going to afford to stay on the farm and be part of something? So that's why I created the business, so that I could not only create an income for myself, which then becomes a regular income rather than once or twice a year. I looked at it from a point of view, I could also then pay for the fuel to travel down to Adelaide, because we're 3 hours, and see my family. So when you get duopolies and monopolies, we've had ACCC look at even stockyards and selling at markets. There is apparently nothing to see here. But as a farmer, when you go to start your business after taking a break over Christmas and you get told, oh, hang on a tick, here's the new price increase, here's this price increase, and you go, well, I didn't actually account for nearly a $45 price increase just this year. So we're back to the drawing board right now, trying to work out how to do our home-based delivery business. I did talk to supermarkets earlier on, but they say to you, this is the weight that we want. So if you want a lamb, we want an 18-kilo lamb that's fully dressed, which means it's ready to go on the supermarket shelves. They pack it. If you go over that, they take dollars off per kilo. So how do you make money from that? So weighing a lamb, which if you're doing free range or organic, we're pasture certified, so we don't weigh and we don't feed them grain. We would have to weigh them every week, and anything that's of a specific weight, even if it looks unhealthy, that would go off to make us money. So farmers are really held a lot by what they say they don't do, which is have all these practices that we actually have to either abide by or walk away.
And I'm not sure how many direct dealings you have with the big two supermarkets, but I'm sure at the very minimum that you speak to a lot of people who do have these types of dealings. The pressure tactics that were referenced in that Four Corners episode, is that a real thing?
Yes, without a doubt, it's a real thing. And it's not only in the supermarkets. If you want to put a product on shelf, you have to work out very early on what is their percentage of profit. What is their percentage of profit if you want them to advertise your product, because you have to wear the cost as well, and they like you to give them an extra percentage of profit. So some of these can be up to 60% to buy a shelf space. So if you're in the middle shelf, you're paying a premium, whereas if you look for the products at the top and the bottom, you're at the low. And if you don't sell your product, they want you to take it back. So you can't actually even spend the money that you get. Oh, and if they pay their bill on time, a lot of them expect a discount on that as well. So you're really, really held to them. And so you need to be able to either scale up quickly or do what we do, which is just do a home delivery base.
And you can't rely on the second-hand sales either, can you?
No.
Because often you're not even going to break even with those.
That's exactly right. And I've had it a few times where people have rung me on the day of delivery, even though I've confirmed it 3 times, and said, I don't want it, I can't afford it. And I go, but I can't put chops back in the paddock because, we do it to order. So we're not butchers, so we don't have ready product ready to go and sell and say, hey, look, so it makes it really uncomfortable. So you're really held by the consumer, but the consumers are really held by the duopolies.
It really is food for thought, particularly for the consumers. Tell me more about your business. So you're based in Keith in South Australia. Just tell us more about the evolution over the last 2 or 3 years. The changes and the difficulties and the complexes that you've seen, the complex changes and barriers that you've seen over the last 3 years with the various cost of living concerns and everything like that. How's it affected you, and how's the business sort of overcome that and sustained the levels of growth that you obviously intend for it to?
Good questions. Because we grow meat, as I say to people, for human consumption, the market for cattle and the market for sheep has dropped. So how did that happen is a question that we're all, as farmers, are looking for. How did our prices of beef in the markets drop half price, almost overnight. So we have had to keep stock on property, and we feed our cattle hay that we've grown on property so that we know what they're getting fed and we know that there's no additional chemicals. But so that means that we now have somebody my husband that goes out 4 times a day making sure they're being fed, and that still doesn't guarantee us a higher price for those cattle. It just means they're getting fed and we're having to hold them longer, or a lot of farmers are destocking. We're in the position right now we're not having to destock, but we don't know how long we can sustain that for. And the same with sheep. Even the way here, my husband said, lambs in the market at the moment are not even getting $80 for a live weight lamb, whereas this time last year, over the last 3 years, they've gone from $250 down to $80. So some farmers are literally shooting their lambs, and working that we do, we have a regular kill and a regular cut for our lamb. Well, I've even had our butcher say to me, "Are you going to do one this week?" And I go, "Well, yeah, we've done it every week." "Oh," and I go, "Why?" And I go, "Oh, because a lot of farmers are trying to do private kills and give them away and give them to families to get them off the property rather than kill them." So the barriers to market are there. We don't know how to change that, because while we're all price takers, no one is increasing the price. So farmers are literally shooting them, moving them on. Some of them are even trying to give them away for free. So we, as a family group for Bullies Meats, we're lucky. Our clients just say, "Come on, we'll," and they have in the last week, "We'll absorb the cost for you." So we'll be starting to ramp up again next week or the week after.
Did we get enough people over the festive period wanting to sort of, I guess, break out of the negative thought cycle of cost of living and things like that and just enjoy Christmas? We've got Easter coming up, in a couple of months too. That's going to be a key time. But just as far as the festive period went over the summer period across the country, did you feel like, we had that consumer sentiment at a slightly higher level? There was a lot of reliance from producers on that happening. Did it happen?
It happened for us. But we also on-sell our our butchers locally done smoked ham at no charge to him, and locally produced South Australian produced turkey breast rolls. So we did 10 tonne over Christmas, but not one single order for Australia Day.
All right. You spoke about your husband before. So take us back to that reunion. What went down there?
Oh, okay. I was actually travelling in a corporate job, so I was selling medical equipment, and I worked with and my graduation partner was a surgeon, an eye surgeon, and he said, "Let's organise our high school reunion in year 10, and I'm there like, "Nah, I'm too busy for that." So at our 20th year, he and I both got together and said, "Let's organise this." And it was actually easy to find all the boarders first, because their parents or them have not moved within 5 kilometres of where they were at school. So I just did a form letter saying, "Here I am, let's all get together." And he rang me up, and we actually got together before the reunion. He came down and said, "Let's go out." And it took nearly 3 years to move to the farm. But when I first went there, I thought, "Oh, I hope he's not going to dump me, because this actually feels like where I should be, where I belong." So we're still together 23 years later. So it's been an interesting marriage, but I certainly married a man of my equal. And he's turned from this really rough, tough farmer into this really soft, pliable, "Let's just do this, honey." So, yeah, he's a really great bloke, and I feel really honoured and privileged to have hooked up with him and being married to him.
They do tend to get softer with age, don't they? Back to 2022, so the AgriFutures Rural Women's Award, winning that, it's been quite eye-opening for me just in the last 3 years, I suppose, going into this ag space where I'm interviewing so many people across the ag sector day in, day out, focusing on an agriculture-based program. There's so many women out there in agriculture that people just aren't even aware of. And I feel like we could have so many more of these initiatives which publicise that, but we don't. But you would know, networking across this space, just how many other women there are in the agriculture space, and a lot of younger women too, which probably, the stereotypical person wouldn't think. So with International Women's Day coming up as well in March, this is just really a fantastic thing to see. More and more women going into the ag space. It is the future. Firstly, tell us about winning the award, what it meant to you, and how many women you've seen enter the ag space, and whether you mentor any of them.
I mentor a lot of them. I'm a real supporter, not just of women, but people seem to forget, Alice, that we're 50% of the workforce. So when people say women are entering into it, I think women are actually now standing up and saying, hey, look, it's okay if I'm doing this because I'm going to share this with you. The Agribusiness Rural Women's Award for me was life-changing, but at the time I was, and I still do, supply meats, affordable meats into communities, First Nations communities here in South Australia and in the Northern Territory, and we were desperate to get a cool van because some of those communities are nearly 100 k's from Alice Springs. And I worked really closely with Food Bank, and they'd set up a food bank there, and they're great because I can actually have meat delivered into their cool room, and someone comes and collects it. So I went into the judges and I said, actually, I'm here because that $15,000 is not going to change my life, but it's going to change the life of people I will never meet, people I don't understand. But as a single mother in my early years, I had problems, even in a secure job, getting food. And when I met one of them and she had nothing in her freezer, that stays with me. So I said, if you give me this $15,000, I'm going to get a cool room out onto community, and then I'm going to set up a not-for-profit so that I can help support them with jobs, with food. And luckily, they said yes. So within a week of getting the grant from Westpac, I had it. It was out there, and at the time, and this is what happens, they had sorry business, which was the unfortunate murder of the young mum and the 6-week-old baby. So we let them have the cool room for nothing for 6 weeks. So we filled it full of food. So they actually didn't have to come off their culture and come off land to have their sorry business. And so we let anybody like Men's Business or all of those sorts of things have this for nothing, so that they've got cold food that they can have so that they can come in. So I really support any woman, and happy to chat to any woman that wants to go into this award, because it's not just about what you can change for you. It's really about changing that landscape and putting what things like I do out into the community, like you're interested in hearing about it. So then somebody else might say, well, how can we help? Well, donate to Food Bank, give me a call. So the charity that I'm starting is called Harvesting Potential, and as at the 20th of January, we actually got our not-for-profit status. So we're a registered charity now in South Australia. So I've got a little bit more work to do, because we're actually going to be a national charity doing exactly that, getting affordable foods, scholarships, sponsorships and grants for women and girls to step out of poverty and help themselves.
Well done on the work you have done so far, and being so involved in that area. Just to finish, tell us more about the Unveiled Trust website, and also the guest speakers you've got lined up for your podcast too.
That will be launched in the next couple of weeks. I've got about 7 guests lined up. I've got a couple of women who are daughter-in-laws that are living the sort of horrors of succession issues. I've got voiceover women that are going to speak for these women, because a lot of them, as I say, it's the real shame of what is going on in agriculture, and probably in a lot of big family businesses when things need to change. And when women are good at bringing change, and people aren't good at accepting it. So I've got a lawyer who literally understands family businesses. She understands corporate law. She understands trusts. I've got another lawyer who's a registered mediator who's going to come in and say, here's what you need. I've got a another woman who's a qualified conflict resolution person. I've got somebody that's in the employment space, and I've got a couple of politicians that are willing to come on and talk to what it means and where to go to get help.
Well, it's hard to assemble a crowd these days, and you've done well just to get that fraction of people organised, and we look forward to the work you do there in the audio space. Robyn Verall, it's been so great speaking to you and having you here at Flow FM. Just wonderful to see how active you are in agriculture, and very much in an unrivaled position, I would argue at the moment, as humble as you'll sort of be about that. Great to get you in here though, Robyn, and thanks so much for making the time for us. All the best with everything.
Thank you so much, Alice. It's been a real privilege.